Good morning, everybody. We're going to get started in a moment. You are here today to learn a little bit more about diversity, inclusion, and literacy. And I am very excited to talk about this topic today. Really, I'm really excited. So we're just going to hold on for one more moment and we will get started in one moment. Hello, how are you? Good morning. Today we're talking about the topic of diversity, inclusion, and literacy. My name is Michelle Osborne, and I am the Communications and Program Development Coordinator for the Quebec City Reading Council. Thank you for joining me today. I'm very, very excited to talk about this topic. I think it's been an interesting year, and I think the topic is really timely. So, we are going to get started. People will join us as they join us. And let's go. Okay. Just move that over. Okay, so today we are talking about diversity, inclusion, and literacy. And this is not just about talking about racism or gender. There are so many topics that we can talk about when it comes to diversity, inclusion, and literacy. And we're going to talk about that today. We're also going to talk about just some simple, easy ways that you can explore diversity at home. So let's take a look at the agenda for today. We're going to talk about how diversity enriches our lives, of course, so people can understand why it's important. We're going to talk about starting with yourself, doing your research, creating an inclusive environment. That's really important when you want to talk about these types of issues. Acknowledging and rewarding curiosity, create opportunities for discussion. Some topics to consider, as I mentioned earlier before we really got started, it's not just about racism or gender. There's a lot of topics to consider for this subject. And of course, we're going to talk about our partnership with pop-up pages and how you can start with books to get started this conversation on this subject. So how does diversity enrich our lives? Well, why it's important? It's important because we live in a multicultural society, especially here in Quebec City and especially here in Canada. So one of the things we want to make sure is that you understand diversity is everywhere. So it helps people interact and learn from others, helps people respect other people, and of course, broadens your mindset when it comes to things you're learning about different cultures, the society that you live in. It makes you an tolerant and accepting individual, and it helps people to learn about different cultures, experiences, and value systems. So, you know, diversity is a bonus for society, for a community. It enriches a community, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to know everything about somebody else's culture, but in order to be able to understand and to communicate within your community, within your population, it's really important to be open-minded. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Go down. Next. So we really encourage people to start with themselves when you're talking about diversity and inclusion, because one of the things is that when you are talking about this topic, you want to be prepared with answers. And now that doesn't mean that you're going to know everything about someone else's culture, about someone else's lifestyle. But one of the things is you have to understand and recognize your privilege. So this topic can be a really tough topic to talk about, but if you are a white person, you have privilege. If you have money, you have privilege. So all of those different types of things you need to understand and recognize before you start this conversation about diversity inclusion. You also want to do some reading and some research online, of course, is great resources, and examine your own biases. Do you have any biases? We all have biases when it comes to different things that are not usual to us, that we're not comfortable with. So it's really important to examine those things as you develop knowledge of other people, of other cultures, and as you speak to your family about it as well, so they become more comfortable with it. Make sure you have uncomfortable conversations. Learning and growing is not about being in your comfort zone. Learning and growing is being uncomfortable. So be prepared to have those uncomfortable conversations with friends, with families, with colleagues, perhaps, because that is when you learn and grow. And remember, your minority friends are not your teacher. And so, one of the things that is interesting is a lot of people think, Susie is of another race, or Karen is of another race. She'll know it all. It doesn't necessarily mean that we know it all. And it also doesn't necessarily mean that we feel comfortable talking about it all. So, don't always feel like they are going to be your encyclopedia, that your sole resource to understand, because we ourselves are still understanding certain things within our own culture and with other people's culture. And of course, then examine your circle of family, friends, and loved ones. Do they have diverse friends? Do they have a diverse circle of people that they communicate with? It's really important to kind of examine that as you go on this journey to understand about diversity and inclusion, because if you do not have a circle of friends that come from a different culture or a different race, or colleagues that come from a different culture, sometimes it's difficult to understand what others are going through or understand their lifestyles. It's really important to try to diversify your circle. So some ideas on how to create a diverse environment. Okay, one of the easiest things is to read or research. And so choosing diverse books, and starting as early as possible. Sometimes people think that, I'll wait till my daughter is, 9 or 10 years old, then she'll understand. You should start as soon as your child comes out of the womb, let's say. Using books is a really great way to be able to do that. Next idea that I think is really important for people, and I think some people might not think about, is making sure that you have diverse art in your child's room or in your home. What type of art do you have in your home? I think it will help them understand that there's different things, and when you have different resources around your home that people and that your children can recognize, it's easier for them to, when they go out in the world, to be able to communicate and connect with other people because they see it in their space and they see that it's okay. A really interesting one that I came across was wall maps. So putting a wall map in your child's room and talking to them about different countries. When you do that, you not only talk to them about the country, but you talk to them about the cultures that are in the country. You talk to them about the races that are in the country. Perhaps you talk about the genders that are in the country. And so it's really important that when you're talking and creating a diverse environment, that you use different types of tools and resources so that your child feels really comfortable, because they may not live in an area that is really diverse. Another resource would be toys. What types of toys are you giving to your child? Do you have toys that are diverse in color? Do you have toys that are diverse in abilities? That's another topic of conversation that would be interesting to talk about with your child. And not only that, are you genderizing your toys? What does that mean? Are you only giving your daughter dolls and your son's trucks? Make sure that you diversify the toys that you give your children. Your daughter can play with cars. Your daughter can play with trucks. Your daughter can play with dinosaurs. And it's actually really important to incorporate that into their toy toolbox so that they can see they can do it all. And it's just not one thing. And it's the same thing on the boy side. Don't feel that they only want to play with trucks. Don't assume that they only want to play with cars, because sometimes they are interested in other things. And why not? Make them feel comfortable enough to be able to say it's okay to play with this type of toy, because it's diverse. it's natural and it's normal. Another thing is puzzles or games that come from different cultures, showing different themes around the world, which is really interesting. Global activities, activities that would not necessarily be from your culture, of course. And sorry, I'm just going to move this here for a second here. And last but not least, craft. Use different types of crafts to teach your child about diversity. This one was really interesting. They used different color shades for hands and they made it into a craft, but there's so many different ways. And if you Google this, there are so many different ways that you can incorporate diverse activities and inclusion in your child's daily life. And these are just some of the ways you can do that. So we're going on to acknowledging, sorry, we're going to go back here. When you're having these conversations with your children, of course, you choose conversations that are age appropriate. So you would not necessarily talk about certain things to, a 1-year-old that you would talk about to a 7-year-old that you would talk about to a 15-year-old. But these are some of the guidelines in terms of acknowledging and rewarding their curiosity, so they can better understand more about different cultures and lifestyles. And I really like this picture here that I've chosen. This is called Drag Queen Story Time at the Toronto Public Library, Toronto, where I'm from. And it is always packed, sold out, because they find it is really important to see how diverse your community can be. And in these drag queen story times, they talk about diverse subjects. They talk about different families. They talk about different races. They talk about different life experiences. And everybody is so engaged and intrigued in these stories. Toronto is actually very progressive when it comes to inclusion and diversity. So I thought this was a really interesting picture to show. And I think it's something that may be interesting for all different communities. So one of the things you want to make sure you do is that you are open and vulnerable to conversations. So make sure that when you have these conversations, that you can be vulnerable, that you can be open, that you are not talking about perhaps something that you're not sure of. If you're not sure, tell them that you're not sure. So be honest about your experience. Don't try to say something that you're not sure of when it could be something that they really are interested in. And then they go back to school and they talk about it with their friends and their family, and it's totally untrue. Really be honest about your experience of what you know and what you don't know. And make sure you're exploring new things together on a regular basis. That's really important. It's not just once a year that you explore diversity. You want to have different elements in your home and in conversations on a regular basis, so that when they interact with different people, it's really normal for them. It's not a surprise. And I think, especially in Quebec, as we go through immigration and there's lots of changes going on, people are learning to adjust with different types of culture, different types of people. And so you don't want your child to go to school and always be surprised. But it's okay for them to be curious, though, open-minded and curious. And then make sure you get other family members and friends involved. That's really important, well, to have a supportive community of people around you that also support what you are trying to do. Now, create opportunities for discussion. And one of the best ways, especially with kids, is to incorporate things from pop culture, right? They love pop culture. So if you incorporate those different types of things as you're learning about diversity, maybe different pieces of music around the world, celebrities, things like that, current events that are going on. Those are really great ways to incorporate conversations about diversity and inclusion. Music, like I said before, kids love music. And so if you choose different types of music from around the world, it brings up conversations to talk about different cultures and different communities. That's really important. Well, and lastly, celebrities. Kids love celebrities. celebrities. Adults love celebrities. So when you bring all of these different elements into the picture, it's not like you're taking them to school and you're sitting down to educate them about a specific topic about diversity, inclusion. What you are doing is showing them that it's all around us. It's normal. It's something to embrace. It's not something to be afraid of. And so that is what you're trying to do as early as you could do it with your kids. Now, some of the topics to consider that I shared with you earlier, it's not just about race. And I think that when we talk about diversity, people just think about race, but diversity and inclusion is much more than just race. So when you are talking to your children, when you're bringing up these conversations at home, think about culture, think about gender, think about sexuality, ageism, abilities. People don't talk about different abilities enough. And of course, language. So these are just some of the topics that you should and can consider when you're talking about diversity and inclusion. And the interesting thing is, kids are really, really open to it. I think as we get older and we become adults, we become more uncomfortable with it. Perhaps because we were just brought up in communities that weren't diverse, so we're still learning along the way. So it is really beneficial if you start with your kids at a really young age to bring all of these different things into their lives, using all of these different resources, putting different art in their room, using different types of music, different types of crafts, using what's happening in the world today to talk about different types of things in terms of race and culture and gender. It's been an interesting year for all of us. So I think these are really important subjects that should be talked about as a family. Now we're going to talk just a little bit about the Pop-Up Pages Community Initiative and why why we decided to be a partnership as Quebec City Reading Council. And of course, because we think reading is one of the best ways for you to learn and have fun. And this initiative that we are talking about, it's a community initiative that helps foster the development of literacy skills in toddlers through their early years reading awareness and to enhance parents' playful reading skills. So, a book is a great way at the end of the day or in the middle of the day, depending how old your child is, to sit with them, to bond with them, to talk with them, to discuss these different types of issues in terms of diversity and inclusion, and bringing all of these types of books and resources to them so they feel comfortable when they go out into their communities. And so just below there are some of the community partners who are part of this initiative. And we all have a new stock of books that are hugely diverse and so excited about them for various different age groups. And I'm going to show you some of the things that we've received from the Pop-Up Pages initiative that I think would be perhaps great for some of your children or some of the people that you know in your community. So first we have, we have these fuzzy, noisy books. These books are great for 0 to 6 months, okay? They're interactive, they make noise, anything that has, peepholes or puppets or mirrors at this age. Kids love to use things like this. And so this one's about animals and this one's about fruit. But at this stage, they're not necessarily wanting them to learn the words and they're not necessarily going to understand, but you want to be able for them to recognize your voice. You want them to see colors. You can talk about the colors, and they might not even sit there and look at it. They might want to grab it and play with it, and that's okay, as long as you start as a base with something like this for them to get interested in reading. Now, here's another great book for perhaps someone who is 7 to 12 months old. And what you want to use for this age group as well is use interactive books. At this age, they still really, really love interactive books. And try to use books that use words from everyday life. So they start to recognize words from everyday life, okay? So things like that are really great for kids. You got coffee. I mean, we all have coffee in our regular everyday life, right? Colors, very simple words, 1-word pages. So you want to use these different types of books as you are going through this age group of 7 to 12 months old. Now, going into 12 to 14 months old, and these books are really, really great in terms of diversity. This book in particular, it talks about different cultures, different languages. This is a book that we have in stock. We really love these hardcover books for young kids because it's easy for them to hold and easy for them to search through, okay? We also have another book here called Bob Marley's One Love, and it talks about loving each other and accepting each other, different cultures like that. And then we have another book here called Pride Colors, which talks about different families having two moms or two dads, and different cultures within that as well, which we find, which we love, 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 because we want to teach our children about acceptance and tolerance, not just about what we know in our lives and what we know in our communities. That's what makes the world great, showing people that there is difference, and it's beautiful, and that is okay. And so another suggestion for around 24 to 36 months, although you can use all of these books at different ages. I have a daughter who's 3 years old. She's turning 4 very, very shortly, and she still plays and loves with some of her books that I showed her when she was 1 year old. So don't feel like just because someone says, oh, at this age group, they should be reading that. What you want to do is give books to your children that they like to read and that they like to see, because then they will be more inclined to want to read, which means as they grow older, they will choose the books that they like. Here are some really interesting books here that we got in as well. This is around the 24 months to 36 months, so 2 to 3 years old age group. They have beautiful, beautiful, beautiful pictures, simple words, simple sentences. This one is about Gandhi, talking about some of the prominent and very interesting people from our past. This one's about Harriet Tubman. This one is about Frida, and this one is about Marie. So these are some really amazing, I didn't have any of these books growing up. So I feel really jealous about this, to be honest with you. These are some really, really great books to teach your child or your children about history and showing them about all of the different types of people around the world that have made a difference. These are in the hardcover books, and these are smaller books as well, which are easy for kids to hold. And I know, especially for my daughter, she loves to hold her own book a lot of the times. So this is perfect for that age group. And last but certainly not least, we have books from the 2 to 5 years old age group that are really, really interesting. I tell you, they're so interesting. This one is called What is a Refugee? So understanding the process, perhaps understanding about the feelings of this community, this population, people who go through this type of thing. We also have a book called Bow Wow Powwow, which educates kids about Indigenous people. Really interesting to know. There's this book called Be You, which we really, really love, talking about being yourself, not worrying about anybody else, but accepting at the same time. And last but not least, a dream called Dream Big that has some really great pictures and simple words. It's very diverse. One of the things that we want to mention about books that you get, and especially for kids, they love to see colors. They love to see things that they can interact with. And you can make it as simple, or as they get older, as more complicated as you want. But one of the things is bringing books that are diverse with different people, with different cultures, so you can talk about it with your child as they grow up. So I want to say, if you are interested in any of these books, you are absolutely welcome to do so. We have about 100 books that we received for our new library. You can come up to Quebec City Reading Council in Saint Foy, visit www.qcrc.org to find out all of the information on this project, as well as our phone number and our address. It will be all there for you. You can give us a call, come on up, grab some of these books, and we are more than happy to share you with them for free, because we want you to be able to bond with your child, and we want you to be able to make this conversation about diversity, inclusion, as easy as possible for you. So thank you everyone for coming today. Is there any questions about anything that I've said? Hi, Catherine. I'm going to take you off.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. I wanted to go to a chat, but there was no chat window because I wanted to recommend a book by Marlo Thomas called Free to Be You and Me.
Ah, yes, I do know that book.
You know, I used that when I was teaching primary school music over 40 years ago.
Wow.
And it's still just as true today. One of my favorite pieces in it, and I know you'll appreciate this one, was called William's Doll.
Okay.
You need to look up that song / poem. It's beautiful. William has a doll and his friends make fun of him.
And how old is this book, Catherine?
Well, I was using it 40 years ago. Marlo Thomas produced it. I mean, you know, Marlo Thomas was a great activist for gender equity and inclusion and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And in this William's Doll, like I said, his friends made fun of him. And his dad said, but William needs a doll because someday he will be a dad.
Oh my God, that's perfect.
And the song is so beautiful. I sang it to my kids when they were younger. And I mean, this is not new, this stuff that you're saying. The bit about the 2 dads, 2 moms, that is new. But the rest of it about gender equity and this sort of thing and racial equity, that's all in Marlo Thomas's book. I think that would be such a fantastic addition to your library. And there's a record, good Lord, that's dating it. There may be a CD to go with it now. I had a vinyl record.
Listen, I grew up with records too, Catherine.
Yeah.
But you want to know something? You're right. It is not nothing new. And I think we just see it more now.
I think we're more vocal about it now.
Exactly. And we're going through, you know, it's interesting what this year has been, but because of the internet, I think there is just more out there for us to see.
Yeah.
We've had a challenging year, you know, goes without saying when it comes to diversity and inclusion.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's more important now than ever where people can talk about it. And you know what? If you go on Amazon and type in books about diversity, books about inclusion for kids, there are so much right now. It's unbelievable.
And that's an issue too, because how do you choose what is good and what isn't?
Exactly.
That's the thing I think we need help with, because you could easily get books on diversity and they're absolutely horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. And you want to know something? What I can do is put out some recommendations. So I'm going to,
that would be good.
This is being recorded. So what we can do is when we post this, we can put some recommendations online as well for people, and not just for this age group. So I just showed books for 0 to 5.
Interrupt us.
I just put books for 0 to 5. We have books that are more for kids, for children more than 5 years old. But I also teach about helping practitioners create spaces that are more diverse and inclusionary. And I have resources and books for adults to deal with, or for them to understand and confront their biases about diversity and inclusion. And I can include those as well.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Anyhow, if you can get your hands on that book, I think you would be so impressed with it. And
thank you.
My son, who is older than you, had a doll.
Well, and you know what? I think when I was talking about in the presentation about genderizing toys in terms of, you know, little Cindy only gets dolls and little Jimmy only gets cars, and specifically for me, I fell into that at the very beginning. When my daughter was born, I was just giving her dolls and dolls and dolls, and specifically dolls of color, because when I was younger, it was so uncommon to get a doll of color. Like it was like
You know what?
you could not
Scentsy
find.
has a doll of color.
What's that?
Scentsy, you know, the melted wax things?
Yes,
It's
they do.
done through they have a
Wow.
doll of color. Aurora Claire owns her, and she has hair just like Aurora's.
Wow.
Yep.
See, that's a big deal. So when
Oh,
my
yeah.
daughter was born, I tried
I
to
was
get her as many
loved
as
looking for
possible.
dolls of color. But Aurora Claire plays with all sorts of things. Her favorite, actually, is Peppa Pig, and I saw you had a Peppa Pig somewhere
Yes.
earlier. And she's got all her Peppa characters, and she plays with them. Those are her favorites.
And at that age, they don't even look at color. They
No.
just look at whatever makes them feel good, whatever
Yeah,
they're comfortable with.
yeah,
And now, since my daughter's been 2 years old, I make sure her toy collection is very diverse. She has cars, she has
yeah.
trucks, she has tools, she has dinosaurs,
So does
toys that
Aurora.
normally people would only buy for boys, and she loves them.
Oh, yeah,
She absolutely loves them because she
yeah.
doesn't see it as, oh, I can't play with this, I'm a girl. She just sees it as something
This
that
is a
she's
fun
enjoying.
toy. This truck makes a noise.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Catherine. I
Well, you're
appreciate
very
you being
welcome.
here.
I would really like you to have this presentation made available to the early childhood educators here.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
know that most of them are pretty cognizant of the importance of inclusion and diversity, but still, I think it'd be a good presentation for them to see. Plus, they could get to see some of the books that you have.
Yeah, and you know what? You're very welcome to bring your granddaughter up,
Yeah, I
grab
was
some
going to
books.
ask you, am I allowed in?
Yes.
Okay, because
Yeah,
with
just give
COVID,
us
I
a
don't
call.
know, right?
What's that?
With COVID, I never know where I'm allowed anymore.
Yeah, just bring a mask.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
And give us a call. And a lot of us are working remotely these days, but we
Right.
are in a few days of the week. So I would say just give us a call or send us an email to say,
Okay.
I want to come in tomorrow, grab some books, because sometimes your kids get bored of books really easily, and
Yeah,
sometimes you can get, you build up the library so much and there's just too much, or books are not cheap either.
I
They can
know.
be very, very expensive, as I learned as I got older, and I didn't realize how expensive books were. So
Yeah,
this is a great way to diversify your library
yeah,
and keep the rotation of books flowing in and
yeah.
out. And if you know anybody who's interested or might be interested, because we have so many new books about diversity.
Yeah, I think we heard about this at a Take a Break before COVID. I believe Megan came and did a presentation on the pop-up library,
Maybe.
I believe, and then COVID happened and everything shut down.
Yes.
And I guess that I know I forgot about it.
Well, yeah, we got these books during the COVID time,
Yeah.
and
Megan had a couple with her that day to show, and
yes.
she said that there would be more coming. I'm cutting up dates while I'm talking to you, by
Oh,
the way.
that's okay. That's okay. We multitask all the time,
Yeah,
but
we
we
do.
got like easily 100 books or more. I don't know the count. I
I think
apologize.
maybe what I'll do is grab Aurora Claire one afternoon. Hey,
Yes.
Mom, we're just going. Go read a book or have a nap
Yes.
because, she could use a break.
That's perfect. And there's
Okay.
your kitty.
Yeah, I'll be in touch. Yeah, there's my kitty. That's Ocho Cat.
Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for the presentation.
You're
And
welcome.
thanks to Facebook for letting me know about it.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Thanks
Megan
everybody
sent me an
for coming
email too.
out. Give us a
Okay.
call. Join us and have a great day.
You too. Take care. Thanks. Bye.